When we first pulled into Marigold Grove, I thought we'd stumbled into a postcard. Every house glowed with fresh paint, lawns trimmed to velvet, flower beds exploding with color. White picket fences framed children on bicycles, and neighbors waved from porches as if auditioning for a real estate commercial. It was everything I thought I wanted. After years in apartments surrounded by city noise and sirens, we were hungry for quiet. For space. For the illusion that the world outside our door could be as peaceful as it looked. I should have known better. My wife, Lily, and I moved in on a Saturday. By Sunday evening, we'd met Karen. I remember exactly how she looked that first afternoon, standing at the foot of our driveway, arms folded across a clipboard, hair sprayed into immobility. Her lips were pressed into a thin, determined line. Lily was kneeling beside a flower bed, planting violets. I was wrestling with a ladder, trying to hang a wind chime near the porch. Karen cleared her throat. "Excuse me," she said. We both turned. "I'm Karen. I'm in charge of the Marigold Grove Neighborhood Standards Committee." Lily raised an eyebrow. "Neighborhood standards." Karen's gaze flicked to the wind chime dangling in my hands. "Those aren't permitted," she said sharply. "They're a noise disturbance. Section 12, subsection B." I blinked. "Noise disturbance? It's a wind chime." Karen held up her clipboard like a badge. "Marigold Grove is a peaceful neighborhood. We don't allow disruptive sounds. Also," she pointed at the violets Lily was planting, "purple isn't an approved flower color. We prefer whites, pinks, or yellows." Lily slowly straightened up, dirt smeared on her gloves. "I'm sorry, what?" Karen exhaled like she was dealing with children. "It's in the community rules. Don't worry. I'll drop off a copy." Then she spun on her heel and stalked away, leaving the scent of floral perfume hanging in the humid air. I looked at Lily. She burst out laughing. "Oh my God," she said. "She's real. She's actually a Karen." I grinned. "Maybe it's just a weird neighbor thing. She can't really stop us from having wind chimes." Lily raised a dirt-caked finger. "Watch her try." We chalked it up to neighborly eccentricity. Until the paper showed up. On Monday, I found a notice taped to our front door. Notice of violation. Unauthorized lawn ornament, wind chime. Unauthorized non-compliant flora, violets. Fine, $125. Immediate removal required to avoid further penalties. There was no letterhead. No official seal. Just a blocky stamp at the bottom. Marigold Grove Standards Committee. I laughed, but Lily frowned as she read it. "This isn't even an HOA," she murmured. "I looked it up before we bought the house. There's no record." "Then what is she doing?" I asked. "Flexing power she doesn't have," Lily said. "Let me handle it." And right there, I should tell you something else about my wife. Lily's sweet. Funny. Loves animals. Bakes perfect cookies. But Lily's also an FBI agent. I watched her face go hard in a way that made me almost feel sorry for Karen. Almost. That evening, we went for a walk. The sun was setting behind neat rows of houses. Kids were drawing chalk rainbows on the sidewalk. Karen appeared out of nowhere, stepping into our path like a school principal catching us out past curfew. "Good evening," she chirped. "Have you removed the wind chime?" Lily smiled sweetly. "I'm curious, Karen. Where can I find a copy of your committee's bylaws?" Karen's smile flickered. "We don't put them online. It's a security issue." "Really?" "Because I checked the county clerk's office. There's no record of Marigold Grove having a registered HOA or any covenant documents." Karen's smile dropped entirely. "Those records are confidential." Lily stepped closer. "See, that's funny. Because the law requires any HOA or neighborhood association with enforcement powers to be filed with the county and accessible to homeowners. So either you're running an illegal organization or you're pretending to have authority you don't." Karen flushed red. "You should watch your tone," she snapped. "People who don't cooperate sometimes find life here very unpleasant." I stepped forward. "Is that a threat?" Karen's lips curled. "I'm simply stating facts. This is a community with standards. People who don't fit in often leave." She spun and marched away, leaving us stunned under the street lamp glow. That was the moment I knew this wasn't just a nosy neighbor. This was a woman running her own private kingdom. By the end of the week, 3 more notices appeared on our door. Violation. Excessive porch decor. Violation. Unauthorized welcome mat color. Violation. Improper garbage can placement. Total fines now exceeded $400. Each notice was signed only. "Karen, chairwoman." Lily sat at the kitchen table one evening, flipping through the stack of papers. "She's trying to see if we'll just pay to make her go away," she said. "That's how these people operate." I frowned. "But there's no HOA. How can she find anyone?" "She can't. But most people don't know that. Or they're too scared to push back." She looked at me over the rim of her coffee mug. "We're going to push back." The next day, Lily started quietly talking to neighbors. Most were terrified. One woman whispered that Karen had sent a man in a security uniform to stand outside her house, hand resting on his gun, until she paid a $200 compliance fee. Another neighbor, an elderly man named Mr. Jenkins, said he'd been threatened with legal action because his grass was an unapproved shade of green. People spoke of Karen in hushed tones, the way villagers talk about witches in old stories, and then Lily found the so-called security officer. We were jogging past a cul-de-sac when we saw him, a burly man in a dark uniform, badge glinting in the sunlight, a gun holstered on his hip. He was standing with Karen, who was pointing at a neighbor's yard and speaking rapidly. Lily slowed her pace. "That badge doesn't look real," she murmured. "Neither does the gun," I muttered. We approached. "Good afternoon," Karen called in a brittle voice. "I'm so glad you're here. Officer Lyle is helping us ensure compliance." Lily tilted her head. "Which agency are you with?" The man shifted uncomfortably. "Neighborhood Security Enforcement." "That's not a real thing," Lily said flatly. "May I see your license?" Karen stepped between them. "He doesn't have to show you anything. He's under my authority." Lily folded her arms. "Karen, impersonating law enforcement is a felony." The man went pale. Lily stepped closer. Show me the badge number, or I'm calling the police. The man stammered, then turned and half-jogged to his car. Karen shouted after him. Don't leave. We're not finished here. He peeled away down the street, tires squealing. Lily looked at Karen and said, Congratulations. You just added a whole new list of crimes to your resume. Karen's face twisted into something ugly. This neighborhood was perfect before you people came, she hissed. And I'm going to make sure you're gone. Then she stormed off, leaving us alone on the sidewalk, the wind rustling the leaves overhead. After the fake security officer sped away, Karen disappeared from the streets for a few days, but the neighborhood was buzzing like a kicked hornet's nest. People peeked out from behind blinds whenever Lily and I passed. Some waved us closer, whispering hurried stories about fines, threats, and mysterious letters slipped under doors. Lily took meticulous notes in a small black notebook she carried everywhere. She was building a case, piece by piece. One evening, we sat in our living room, documents scattered across the coffee table. Lily leaned forward, flipping through them. Look at this, she said. She's using the same fake letterhead on every violation notice. There's no tax ID number. No legal references. Just a made-up committee name. People have paid her thousands. I murmured. Lily nodded grimly. That's fraud. Extortion even. She's impersonating legal authority. And that so-called security guard, he's committing a felony by wearing a badge and carrying a gun without a license. She paused. We're going to nail her. By the end of the night, the backyard was glowing with laughter and flickering lantern light. Mr. Jenkins sat beside me, balancing a paper plate on his knee. I almost sold my house because of her, he confessed. I didn't want to live under her thumb anymore. But this feels different now. I patted his shoulder. Because we know we're not alone. He nodded slowly. That's worth staying for. In the weeks that followed, the county prosecutor announced charges against Karen, multiple counts of fraud, impersonation of a public official, harassment, extortion, and conspiracy. We attended her arraignment. The courtroom buzzed with quiet tension as Karen was led in wearing an orange jumpsuit. Her hair was pulled back, face pale, eyes darting wildly. When she spotted Lily and me in the gallery, she froze. For a second, I thought she might try to say something. But she looked away. The judge read out the charges in a crisp voice. Karen stood silent, lips trembling. When the judge asked for her plea, Karen's voice came out as a whisper. Not guilty. The prosecutor calmly requested remand, arguing that Karen had used intimidation and fraud to control an entire neighborhood and posed a flight risk. The judge agreed. Karen was led away in cuffs, glaring back over her shoulder at the rows of neighbors gathered behind us. Outside the courthouse, reporters thrust mics in our faces. Do you have any comment on today's hearing? One asked. Lily simply said, We're glad the justice system is working. And we're moving on. Moving on wasn't instant. Some neighbors struggled with guilt for having supported Karen, or for paying her demands without question. Mrs. Foster started therapy. Teresa admitted she still flinched when the doorbell rang, but they kept coming to the new community meetings Lily helped organize. These meetings weren't secret. They were open, welcoming, and democratic. Anyone could speak. Decisions were voted on openly. One evening, Kyle stood up in the middle of the circle of folding chairs. I'm sick of feeling like we're one clipboard away from a dictatorship, he said. We should make it official that this neighborhood will never form an HOA with fines or forced compliance. Ever. The room exploded in applause. That motion passed unanimously. Another neighbor suggested creating a small neighborhood fund, but only for real needs, like helping someone fix a leaking roof or buy groceries if they were in a rough patch. Voluntary donations only, Lily emphasized. Transparency, receipts, no secrets. The spirit was cautious but hopeful. One sunny Saturday, we hosted a block-wide yard sale. People hauled tables into driveways, selling everything from old bicycles to homemade candles. Kids ran between tables with popsicles dripping down their arms. I caught sight of Mrs. Foster chatting with a stranger, smiling for the first time in months. Meanwhile, Lily fielded questions from other neighborhoods. People from 3 counties away started calling, asking how to check whether their HOAs were legitimate. Lily patiently explained how to look up public records, how to spot forged documents, how to unite neighbors. One woman broke down crying over the phone. They told me I'd be fined $500 for hanging a Christmas wreath. I thought I was alone. You're not alone, Lily told her. And you don't have to pay a fake fine. By summer, local newspapers were running headlines like, Fake HOA tyrant exposed by FBI agent wife. But Lily refused to let them turn her into a hero. It wasn't just me, she insisted. The real victory was neighbors standing up together. The county sent official letters confirming there was, and never had been, any HOA governing Marigold Grove. Homeowners who'd paid Karen were told how to file restitution claims, and the county commissioner came to one of our meetings to apologize publicly. I'm ashamed it went on this long, he said. We're changing our reporting processes so this can't happen again. It wasn't perfect. Some wounds ran deep. Mrs. Foster confessed that every time she saw a clipboard, her stomach tightened in fear, but things were healing. And finally, the neighborhood felt like the peaceful place we'd hoped for when we first arrived. In July, we held the block party we'd been dreaming about since the day we moved in. The street shimmered under rows of string lights. Grills smoked. Laughter rolled across yards. Teresa brought a cake shaped like a wind chime, complete with silver icing bells. It's legal now, she declared, and everyone roared with laughter. Even the sheriff showed up, out of uniform, balancing a paper plate piled high with ribs. As fireworks bloomed overhead, Lily leaned into me. This is what we were fighting for, she murmured. I slipped my arm around her waist. Worth every bit of it, she nodded slowly. And if anyone tries to pull another Karen on this neighborhood, I grinned, they'll have to deal with us. And the whole block, she added, gesturing to the clusters of neighbors singing along to Sweet Caroline under the fireworks. I looked around and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Because it wasn't just that Karen was gone. It was that fear was gone. In its place was something bright and alive. A neighborhood that knew how to fight back, and how to come together again, and in the gentle night breeze, I could hear the soft tinkling of our wind chime hanging from the porch. A sound that, at last, no one could silence. The day of Karen's trial came with gray skies, and the kind of damp heat that made dress shirts cling uncomfortably. Still, the courtroom was packed. We sat in the third row, behind the railing, surrounded by neighbors who'd come to testify or simply witness justice. Mr. Jenkins clutched his notepad like a shield. Teresa wore a blouse she hadn't worn since her wedding anniversary. Even Maya, the teenager who'd once refused to open the door to strangers, showed up with her parents, a quiet fire in her eyes. Karen entered flanked by 2 attorneys. She looked thinner, paler. Her hair had lost its rigid helmet-like form and hung flat at her shoulders. She didn't meet our eyes. Her lawyers did the talking now. The prosecutor opened with a clear, devastating line. This is a case about manufactured power, financial abuse, and psychological control in the heart of suburbia. Then came the testimonies. Mrs. Foster's voice trembled as she recounted being told she'd be fined for leaving her porch light on past 10. She said my light was attracting criminals, she whispered. I thought I'd get arrested if I didn't pay her. Mr. Jenkins stood straighter than I'd ever seen him. I served in the Army, spent 2 years in Vietnam. I never thought I'd be more afraid in my own neighborhood than I was in a combat zone. One after another, residents gave their accounts. Every story was like a stone in a growing pile. By the time Lily testified, the mood in the room had shifted from pity to outrage. She took the stand in a navy blazer, hair pulled back, her badge tucked into her pocket but not out of sight. She spoke clearly, methodically, walking the jury through Karen's violations. The fake security personnel, the forged violation notices, the hundreds of dollars siphoned from frightened neighbors. She explained how the supposed HOA had no legal foundation, no charter, no board, just Karen, a clipboard, and a growing ego. Karen's defense tried to paint her as a misguided but well-meaning organizer. She believed she was preserving the integrity of the neighborhood, her lawyer argued. She didn't intend harm. The jury didn't buy it. The verdict came swiftly, guilty on all major counts, fraud, criminal impersonation, harassment, and more. Karen slumped in her seat as the judge read the sentence, 14 years, with eligibility for parole in 7. The courtroom stayed silent, the air heavy with both justice and exhaustion. When we stepped outside, the rain had started, soft and steady. Lily turned her face up toward the sky and let it wash over her. She'll appeal, I said quietly. She can try, Lily replied. But she's done here. The news reported on it for weeks. Fake HOA queen sentenced in suburban justice shakeup, read one headline. Another called Lily the agent who brought down a neighborhood tyrant. Though she hated that phrasing. It wasn't just me, she said every time. They stood up too. And it was true. The neighborhood wasn't the same after the trial, but not in the way you might think. It didn't fall apart. It flourished. With Karen gone, fences came down, literally. Mr. Jenkins took out the hedge between his house and the Smiths, saying, I'd rather see my neighbor's face than hide behind bushes. The community meetings evolved into potlucks, then into volunteer days. We rebuilt the playground, repainted the benches in the park, even started a community garden. Teresa oversaw it, proudly showing off her tomatoes and bell peppers. We passed a new neighborhood charter, not an HOA, but a guiding agreement. It said we would never again allow a single person to make decisions for everyone else. We committed to inclusion, transparency, and kindness. Every vote required consensus. Every meeting was open. There were no fines, just conversations. People donated to a communal fund not out of fear, but out of generosity. The first family to benefit was an elderly couple whose roof had started leaking. 10 people showed up on a Saturday with ladders, tarps, and pizza. It felt like the kind of neighborhood people dream about but rarely find. The next day, Lily started leaving discreet notes in mailboxes. If you've received fines or threats, please contact us. We're investigating. At first, no one responded. But then a woman named Teresa knocked on our door one evening, her face pale and drawn. She told me my daughter couldn't play with chalk on the sidewalk, Teresa whispered. She said it lowered property values. Then she fined us $250. I paid it because I was afraid. Lily took her statement, gentle and patient. An hour later, Mr. Jenkins appeared. Karen said my house paint color was non-compliant, he said. She threatened to have me reported to the county. I'm on a fixed income. I paid her $800 to resolve it. By the end of the week, we had testimonies from 12 neighbors. Lily compiled them into a thick binder labeled simply, Karen Evidence. The more stories we gathered, the more I realized how deeply Karen had embedded herself in people's minds. She's like a cult leader, Lily muttered one night. She isolates people, makes them feel alone, then offers herself as the only way to avoid punishment. One neighbor, Mrs. Foster, confessed that she hadn't opened her curtains in months, terrified of Karen showing up with another fine. She told me my bird feeder was excessive wildlife attractant, Mrs. Foster said, voice trembling. She said I was endangering the community. I sat beside her on the porch, trying to imagine the kind of fear that would make a woman afraid of feeding birds. Meanwhile, Karen escalated. A few days after neighbors started talking, we woke up to find the words "Get Out" spray painted across our garage door in bright red letters. David was shaking as he stared at it. Lily stood beside him, arms crossed, eyes like steel. She's desperate. She knows we're closing in. We called the police. A young officer arrived, took photos, and shrugged. Hard to prove it was her, he said. Unless you got footage or witnesses. Lily narrowed her eyes. We're working on that. Karen made her next move at the neighborhood Facebook page. She posted a long screed accusing us of being radicals, trying to destroy Marigold Grove's values. She claimed Lily was an unstable government agent, and that I was an agitator, bent on turning the neighborhood into a lawless mess. Neighbors started getting nervous again. Some stopped speaking to us. Others avoided eye contact. It felt like the air itself had grown heavy with suspicion. One night, I found Lily sitting in the dark living room, staring at nothing. Hey, I said gently. Don't let her get in your head. Lily blinked, eyes shining. I just can't believe how easy it was for her. How fear can keep people quiet. She shook her head. Not anymore. The next day, she called every neighbor whose stories we collected and invited them to a secret meeting. We held it in our garage, the door down, fans running to muffle the sound. People came hesitantly, looking around as if expecting Karen to burst in at any moment. Lily stood in front of the workbench, holding up the binder. This is everything we gathered, she said. Karen has no legal authority. There's no HOA registered with the county. Every fine she's issued is fake. Every threat is baseless. Mr. Jenkins raised a shaky hand. But what do we do? She'll retaliate. Lily nodded. She will try. But there's power in numbers. If we stand together, she can't pick us off one by one. Teresa spoke up. But the security guard, he had a gun. Lily leaned forward. He's not real law enforcement. I confirmed he has no license. If he shows up again, you call the police immediately. And tell them you suspect he's impersonating an officer. A murmur rippled through the garage. Mrs. Foster took a trembling breath. I'm tired of being afraid. Slowly, hands went up around the room. People volunteered to sign affidavits, to tell their stories publicly. By the time the meeting ended, there was a sense of something I hadn't felt since we moved in. Hope. That night, Lily and I sat in the kitchen drinking tea. Are you scared? I asked her. She shrugged. Of course. But this is what I do. I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. I'm proud of you. Lily gave a small smile. I'm proud of all of us. 2 days later, Karen tried to stage her own show of power. She knocked on our door with a smirk on her face. Good afternoon, she said brightly. I'm delivering final notices for noncompliance. If you don't pay your fines immediately, I'll be forced to escalate this to legal authorities. Lily stepped into the doorway. Karen, there's no HOA. You have no authority. And you're under investigation for fraud and impersonation. Karen's eyes flashed with fury. You think you're smarter than me? You think these people will side with you over me? I've been running this neighborhood for years. They're mine. Not anymore. Lily said. Karen's face twisted. This place was perfect before you people came. I felt a surge of anger. All we did was move in and hang a wind chime. Karen jabbed her finger at Lily. I'm going to ruin you. You'll see. Lily just tilted her head. I've dealt with bigger bullies than you, Karen. Karen turned on her heel and stomped away, muttering curses under her breath. As her footsteps faded, Lily whispered. She's losing control. But Karen wasn't finished yet. That night, as we lay in bed, we heard footsteps on the porch. I crept to the window and peered out. Karen was out there, in the dark, slashing a knife across our new welcome mat, slicing the words home sweet home into shreds. I stepped onto the porch. Karen! I shouted. She froze, eyes wild. Lily appeared beside me, her badge in one hand. Stay where you are, she commanded. You're under arrest for vandalism and trespassing. Karen dropped the knife and bolted, disappearing into the shadows between houses. Lily exhaled, lowering her badge. Tomorrow, we end this. Karen's arrest didn't magically fix everything. It was the start of a long, messy journey back to normal. In the days following the community meeting, neighbors wandered the streets in a daze. It was as if the sunlight itself felt different, sharper, less filtered through layers of fear. People talked cautiously at first, like they were afraid Karen might still be listening from some hidden corner. The police kept coming around, taking statements. A detective named Ramirez sat at our kitchen table 3 afternoons in a row, filling out reports. She was keeping meticulous lists, Ramirez said, flipping through a thick folder of evidence. Names, addresses, how much she'd find each household. It's like she thought she was running a private government. Lily nodded. She was. And the neighborhood let her because fear works. Ramirez gave Lily a respectful look. The DA's office says your documentation is airtight. She's looking at multiple felony counts. A few days later, reporters began camping on our street. They wanted interviews. Shots of the red spray-painted garage door. Photos of Lily in her FBI jacket. We turned most of them away, except one local station. The reporter was a young woman named Erica, with bright eyes and a notebook full of scribbles. She stood on our lawn one breezy afternoon, while Lily spoke into her mic. I don't think this is just a story about one bad neighbor, Lily said. It's about how easy it is for one person to seize power when no one pushes back. And how important it is for communities to stand together. Neighbors watched from their porches as the interview wrapped. After Erica left, Mrs. Foster approached us, tears in her eyes. I'm sorry I believed her, she whispered. She said you were dangerous. Lily reached out and hugged her. It's okay. She scared us all. That's how people like her operate. And slowly, the walls between neighbors began to crumble. One evening, Lily and I hosted a small gathering in our backyard. We set out folding chairs, paper lanterns, and a cooler full of soda and beer. At first, only a handful of people came. Teresa, Mr. Jenkins, Mrs. Foster, but then more trickled in. Kyle, the guy from 3 streets over, brought his guitar. A teenager named Maya shyly offered to help set up speakers for music. People laughed. Someone started a game of cornhole. And as for Lily and me, we stayed. We could have moved. The attention, the trial, the stress, it had worn on us. But this little corner of the world had become ours. We had fought for it. And that meant something. Lily started offering workshops at the local library. How to protect your rights in your neighborhood. She taught people how to read public records, how to spot fraud, how to talk to neighbors before trouble became tyranny. I watched her in those sessions, calm and confident, connecting with strangers the way she always could. One evening, as we walked home past the garden where kids were picking sunflowers and bees danced over lavender, I said, You know what the best part is? She smiled. The flowers? No. It's that we turned the worst thing that ever happened to this neighborhood into something good. She nodded. We didn't just stop her. We replaced her, with community, with truth. I reached out, took her hand. And we made this place a home. She looked at me for a long moment. Yes, we really did. Behind us, laughter rang out from the garden. Someone had started music on a speaker, and little kids were dancing on the path. Porch lights blinked on across the street. The scent of someone grilling ribs drifted in the breeze, and for the first time since the day we moved in, I realized I wasn't bracing for the next knock on the door. I wasn't waiting for the next violation notice. We were safe. We were together, and we belonged, not because anyone gave us permission, but because we all finally understood neighborhoods don't need enforcers. They need neighbors, and no one, not even a clipboard-wielding tyrant with a fake badge and a bad attitude, could take that away again. The year after the trial was one of slow healing. It wasn't as though the neighborhood simply snapped back to normal the day Karen went to prison. Fear doesn't evaporate overnight. People still paused at unfamiliar cars creeping through the streets. They still exchanged glances when someone knocked unexpectedly at their doors. But it was getting better. One spring evening, Lily and I stood under the old sycamore in our front yard, watching Teresa and Mrs. Foster paint a wooden sign that would hang at the entrance of the neighborhood. Teresa had sketched big bold letters, "Welcome to Marigold Grove, a neighborhood of neighbors." Below it, she wrote in smaller script, "No HOA. Just community." Mrs. Foster added a sunflower flourish, yellow petals spreading across the lower edge of the sign. Lily grinned. "Think Karen would approve?" I laughed. "I think she'd burst a blood vessel." Teresa wiped paint off her hands. "Good. Then it's perfect." By midsummer, something remarkable happened. Neighbors who'd once stayed hidden behind closed blinds were hosting backyard parties. A young couple who'd been on the brink of selling their house because of Karen's harassment decided to stay. They invited half the street to their baby shower. Mr. Jenkins took it upon himself to organize a neighborhood history project. He went door to door collecting old photos, news clippings, and stories. "Because we're not going to let her be the only chapter people remember," he said. Lily helped him digitize the photos. They made a slideshow for the next community meeting. It was filled with images of picnics, block parties, the annual Christmas light contests. When the projector flashed a shot of kids playing in sprinklers under summer sun, the entire room let out a soft sigh, as if remembering what normal felt like. The neighbors started discussing ways to help other communities avoid what we'd lived through. At one meeting, a woman named Dina stood up and said, "If it could happen here, it could happen anywhere. People need to know how to protect themselves." So Lily, with Dina's help, began writing a guidebook titled Neighborhoods Without Fear, How to Stop Fake HOAs and Community Bullies. Lily worked on it every evening at the kitchen table. Sometimes I'd find her staring into space, chewing the end of her pen. "What's wrong?" I'd ask. She'd shake her head. "Just trying to explain it simply. How do you teach people to trust each other again after something like this?" "Maybe you don't," I told her. "Maybe you just show them how to fight back when it matters." "That's a start," she said. A local printing company donated the first 1,000 copies. They distributed them free to libraries, community centers, and churches across the county. By fall, we were getting calls from people 2 states away. "I read your guide," one woman said over speakerphone as Lily and I sat drinking coffee. "I realized my HOA was fining me illegally for my wheelchair ramp. Thank you for saving my sanity." Lily's eyes shimmered as she listened. "You saved your own sanity. We just gave you tools." Karen's name came up less and less as time passed. She tried to appeal her conviction, but the appellate court upheld it. Her attorneys made statements about misunderstandings and misguided intentions, but the public didn't buy it. Her name became a cautionary tale rather than a threat. One cold winter day, Lily and I drove past the county jail where Karen was serving her time. Lily stared out the window for a long time, silent. Finally, she said, "I don't hate her." I glanced over, surprised. "No, she was cruel, manipulative. But somewhere along the way, she became convinced she was the hero. That's how it always goes. Power warps people. She started thinking the neighborhood needed her." I squeezed her hand. "Yeah, and that's why neighborhoods have to belong to everyone. Not one person with a clipboard." She nodded. "Exactly." Marigold Grove had changed in little ways too. People took turns mowing the shared green spaces. Teens started a volunteer club to help elderly neighbors with errands. Someone suggested a community newsletter. The first headline read, "Together again, Marigold Grove finds its true colors." At Christmas, instead of competing for the brightest light display, people coordinated decorations block by block. They created a walking path of lights for kids, ending in our front yard, where Lily and I served hot cocoa under strands of white twinkle lights. As neighbors gathered around, Teresa stood by the fire pit and raised her cup. "So Lily and," she gestured at me, "and this guy here for reminding us that neighbors don't need permission to stand up for each other." Everyone cheered. Even Mr. Jenkins wiped his eyes. Later that night, after people drifted home and the lights blinked off one by one, Lily and I stood in the cold, steam rising from our cocoa mugs. "I didn't expect this when we moved here," she murmured. "Neither did I said. "But I wouldn't trade it for anything." She leaned her head against my shoulder. "I used to think safety meant peace and quiet. Now I think it means knowing people have your back. And knowing you can fight if you have to." She nodded. "That too." I thought about how far we'd come. From that first ridiculous fine over wind chimes, to red spray paint on our garage, to the sight of Karen being led away in handcuffs. And I realized our story wasn't just about one neighborhood tyrant. It was about fear, and how it grows when left unchallenged. About courage, and how it grows, too, when people refuse to look away. About how neighborhoods are built, not by rules, but by relationships. In spring of the next year, Lily's guidebook was picked up by a national civic organization. They funded a bigger printing run and invited her to speak at a conference. She stood on stage in a navy blazer, telling the story of Marigold Grove to a packed ballroom. She ended her talk by saying, "If someone in your neighborhood tries to rule through fear, remember this. They're counting on you staying silent. Don't. Because once one person stands up, it's amazing how many others will rise with him." People gave her a standing ovation. Afterward, strangers lined up to shake her hand. A woman from Idaho said, "My HOA president threatened me over my garden gnome. You've given me hope." When Lily and I flew home, she turned to me in the plane seat and said, Think Karen knows how many people she ended up helping? I grinned. Probably not. And if she did, it would piss her off. We landed, drove home, and found neighbors waiting with balloons and a welcome back banner, because that's who they were now, not subjects. Not people afraid of clipboards. Neighbors. And as Lily and I stood under the banner, arms around each other, I realized that Marigold Grove was finally what we'd hoped for the day we moved in. A place where people looked out for one another. A place where no one would ever again have to feel alone, or silenced, or afraid to plant purple flowers. And above our porch, our wind chime tinkled in the breeze, a small, chiding sound that carried on the air, as if telling the whole world, we're still here, and we're not going anywhere.